Hello everyone and welcome back to Wolfpack Wednesday. It is that time of the month where we get to talk about some of my favorite games that I played this month, and also this month actually some of my least favorite games as well. Occasionally there'll be some games that sneak in there where I'm just like, what happened? And that's gonna be what we're gonna be diving into for the April month's game played. April games played this month. Let's start. Now the very first game I played this month was Splito. So I think this was actually when we went to Seattle for a really big commercial that I can't wait to be making a video. Well, the video's already made. It's a matter of releasing it when it's allowed to be released. Anyways, we were in Seattle for a commercial, and then Bonds brought Splito for all of us to play. And this is a game where I actually heard of this game from Bonds, and it was just so much fun. What I love about this game is that it has such a small form factor, so it's a really good travel game, because ultimately what you're trying to do is you pick a card and then you pass one down. And the card that you're playing, you're gonna be playing one card on the left side of you and one card on the right side of you. That's why I think there's a minimum of 3 players here. Yeah, 3 to 8 players for this game to work. And the cards that you're playing, they have to meet certain conditions, right? So if I'm playing a card that says you have to have 4 purple cards and then you'll score a certain number of points and I play it to the left, then the person on the left of me should agree with me and play purple cards or play another condition that stacks on top, and it just becomes a really fun pass the card type circle game. So it's a really good staple in my collection, and I love Splito. That was game number 1. Game number 2, now unfortunately this right here, definitely my least favorite of the month, and that is Earthborne Rangers. So this game, oh man, it has so many issues, and like I wanted to do a whole dedicated video about it, but honestly it was just, it's very taxing for me to do videos where I don't like a game, because then I have to spend like a month making a video, and I'm like, dude, this is not fun for me anymore if I do videos like this. In Earthborne Rangers, you're pretty much put into a situation where they are trying to test to see the type of person that you are. And honestly, it has a lot of really good highlights going for it. I love how you're building out your character and these stats that you allocate to begin with. I love these like micro interactions that you have with people. And one of the coolest things about this game is that when you're traveling across from like location to location, people can like bounce off of the trail and like jump onto the trail with you and join you on this quest, on this journey. And they interact with different parts of the conditions that you meet. So like if I carry one person from one town to another town, then they'll interact with each other. And I love that. Like that part was super cool. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing and the biggest reason why this game just wasn't for me came down to like a lot of different things. But if I had to nail down like the main ones, first one's rulebook. The rulebook here is a flat out mess. Like I spent so much time. I think I tried to play this game like 3 times already. Every single time, I am just spending so much time in the rulebook. And this is version 1, by the way, because I know they had a reprint Kickstarter, which hopefully addresses all those issues. But the first one, oh my goodness, like the amount of rules I had to look up and the amount of time I had to spend looking for one main answer, and that is, what am I doing on my turn? And you are always going to be like head into this rulebook trying to find out different interactions, different things, different side scenarios. And I just think the payoff wasn't there after how much time I spent. And like the weird thing is like the prologue doesn't make any sense here. And then in the rules, it'll say like, oh, in step 13, go ahead and follow the arrival setup. And then you're following the arrival setup, and the next part says, oh, go to page 11 to do this. And then, oh, by the way, you should see page 15 to do this. And I'm like, why is it like this? Just answer the question. What am I doing on my turn? And like I said, the rulebook here is a complete time sink. Like overall, rulebooks should be an onboarding process. It should get you to the fun as quick as possible. Just talk about this in my Black Rose Wars review, right? So that process is a huge barrier in this game. Like instead of an onboarding process, it's more of a time sink. So the rulebook really needs a huge overhaul in this game. It really just needs to have sections like telling you, this is what you do in your turn, this is what you need to know. And you shouldn't have all these different types of rulebooks and then spend all this time in them and then still not know what to do for the very first part of your turn. On top of that, the micro interactions, like I said, they're really fun, and I really enjoyed like traveling from city to city. I loved bringing people along with me, but then at the end of the day, you just like think about how it kind of takes you away from the immersion, because like you're asking yourself, well, what am I doing? Like, what's the whole point of this game, right? Mythwind is a similar aspect, but I feel like Mythwind really excels at it because I just really enjoy the process of building out my character. So I don't need an end game for that one. And I'm always spending time there just figuring out what's next. And I love how all the quests there and all of these situations that pop up from events, like I love how Mythwind addresses that because there are consequences, but there are no consequences in Earthborne Rangers. Like in this game, you'll have a predator jump out at you from the middle of nowhere. That's crazy, cool, this is gonna be fun, right? And then it like mauls you and the consequence is like, oh, well, you get to take some fatigue. What? And then you have some interactions with people. If you fail those interactions, literally nothing happens. And I'm just so confused and perplexed as to the fun in that. Like for me, I like consequences. Obviously, I'm not looking for them, but like I want something bad to happen if I'm not good at what I'm doing, right? Because that's more realistic. It's more relatable to me. That's what happens in Mythwind too, right? There's a fire, you're gonna lose parts of your town. Here, if things don't work out, you can literally just ignore it. So ultimately, that's why Earthborne Rangers just wasn't a good fit for me. Now, Earthborne Games did send me this game to review, but unfortunately, it just wasn't a good fit. Now, game number 3, let's go to Japan. I love this game. This was such a unique experience. I've never played a game like this because you are ultimately trying to set out the best ever itinerary in Japan. And every round, you are picking between 2 cards, either to go to Kyoto or to go to Tokyo. It's really cool because especially after traveling to Japan, having a game like this just makes you reminisce about all the awesome times we had on vacation. But on top of that, in terms of like the gameplay itself, it's so interesting because you don't score until the very end. Like no one knows what they're gonna get. You are pretty much programming all of your cards all at once across this 7-day trip. No one knows what's gonna happen until the very, very end. So I love that. It's such a different type of game that I've ever played before. And everyone was like confused, but in a good way because no one knew how many points that they're gonna score from everything. And overall, this is just a really fun, light to medium game that is definitely gonna be opening up a lot of our game days going forward. So if you're looking for something different, something unique, if you want something that is lighter too, if you like tableau building, definitely wanna check out Let's Go to Japan. Now, the next one that we played is Among Cultists. Now, this one definitely was probably the biggest surprise of the month. Not because I thought it was gonna be bad, but because I didn't realize how much fun it was going to be and how, oh my God, I think we had the biggest laughs from Among Cultists. I'm gonna just put it up here so you can see the cover at the very least. Okay, so for Among Cultists, how this game works is it is a social deduction game. And it honestly feels like Clue, but modernized, elevated, and given a ton more complexity. The downside to Among Cultists is that the rulebook definitely still needs a lot of work too. They're just, I don't, like the part that is really difficult for me is that I wish, and overall, like for board games in general, that more time was just spent to polish up these rulebooks. And I just want them play tested in a way that it addresses a lot of different learning experiences. So that way everyone just gets a culmination of experiences because when rulebooks aren't tested fully, it's very apparent, right? Because again, it is that blockade to us having fun. I'm gonna stop there on my rulebook rant. Anyways, other than that though, the payoff at least here is incredibly fun and very rewarding because if you want, it's not really even a party game, I would say. I think it's way more complex than a party game because there are a lot of things going on. The setup is crazy though. You have to like organize all these envelopes and make everything very, very subtle because you don't want people to like reveal their cards by accident. But it's incredibly fun and I love Among Cultists. Like this is gonna be a staple in my collection too, especially with how much fun we had because like my cheeks were sore at game night from how much laughing that we had playing this game. Like this game is so fun. And if you like social deduction, you will love this one because I think we played in a group of 5. And in 5, you have one person that is the cultist, and the other 4 are the detectives. The cultist is trying to take down the other detective, trying to kill 3 of the detectives, I think, 2 or 3, whatever. They're trying to kill a number of detectives. And the detectives are trying to find out who in the group is a cultist, right? So it has that classic negotiation feel for party games like Two Booms in a Room, like Secret Hitler, I think. Like those type of games where one person's bad and a bunch of other people are good. You're trying to find out who's the good and who's the bad. So it has that initial concept, but it feels very board gaming because you are literally moving across the map, just like how you would be in Clue. But you're not trying to gather all this evidence in Clue. Instead, you're trying to see who's going to slip because the cultist can move wherever they want. They don't have to move to a certain program like the cultists do. I've been actually talking about a lot of programming type games here, but yeah, in this game, when you are a detective, you have a certain pathway that only you can move. And obviously you have to be like honest to it. So if it says go to like the yellow room, the red room, then you have to go there. But the Cultists can break that rule, and I think that's what makes it extremely exciting and very manipulative. So if you want a game where you want to test how manipulative you can be, and you want to test your lying abilities, and if you just want to put people in a fun situation where just all their secrets spill out, you're gonna love this one. This is a really fun game. Okay, I got a couple other games here that I logged in for BG Stats, but hey, let me know what games you have all played this month too, because I would love to know. Especially since my unplayed pile, my shelf of shame, that one is dwindling down. Like, I think I'm down to like my last 7 games unplayed. And the one I'm playing right now actually is, oh, this is the back. This is First in Flight. I'm learning this game right now, and I think it's gonna be super fun. Or I'm very excited about it at least, because it reminds me of Heat, but they're all these like little really cool pilots that you're using to place around the board. It's like, for me, it reminds me of Heat and Merchant's Cove put together, because when you move, the person in last is the one that takes initiative that can move around like the map. And ultimately you're trying to fly your airplane the furthest out without crashing. So that's what I've learned so far from First in Flight. I'm excited to dive into this one. But anyways, yeah, there are a lot of prototypes that I play every single month. I just don't talk about them because usually it's like under NDA and stuff. So they usually make about half the games that I play. So these are all the games that you see now are games that either I own or that were sent for review that I've been playing for the month. So just a little FYI. Anyways, with that said, this right here, the next 2 were probably, I think the next 3 to 4, it was very, very difficult to decide which one was like my #1 favorite game of the month. But I think if you saw the last review, then that's a little spoiler for which one was. However, Bantam West, Shadow Governors was definitely up there. It was like right there, neck and neck with Black Rose Wars Rebirth. We got to play this one in full, the Shadow Governors mode. I did not do the baby steps, of course, doing the warm welcome. So Bantam West is a Western themed board game, and it's very sandboxy, which means you have a lot of available actions that you can take on your turn. You can do so many different things. Like when you go to the town, you can interact with all these different shops. You can buy a weapon, you can get a horse, you can buy a drink. Like that part of it is almost a little overwhelming. I think that's what kind of brought it down for me versus for Black Rose Wars Rebirth. Like for me, and I'll definitely do a full comprehensive review on Bantam West for sure, but I don't know why I smacked the box like that. But for Bantam West, I think the part that brings it down for me is that there are too many things that you can do, even though I think it is intended to be like a sandbox, but still, I really wished that the foundations were strengthened a little more. And what I mean by that is each character has different stats that you can allocate and attribute. And I feel like if the game was centered around you strengthening up your character and more ways for you to increase your stats in order for you to like interact more with people more, and you have more incentive to actually PvP it out, and you're given less flexibility, like I think Bantam West is a little too open-ended. I feel like if it just closed off the circle a little more, I feel like it would really shine. But overall, we had so much fun with it. We got to play a 4-player game with this, and I didn't win, but it was still really fun because I was pretty much just going out and being unusually passive. I don't think I fought at all, actually. I think I fought like 1 bandit and maybe like 1 wolf. And the combat in this game too, oh my god, top notch. I love the combat in this game because it is a rock, paper, scissors type of duel. So it really brings out that kind of Western feel where like, on 3, 1, 2, 3, reveal, and then you don't know what the other person's gonna do. But it's a little more complicated than rock, paper, scissors. But the core of it itself is that element where you play like a fist and it blocks like a tackle, play tackle and it blocks a shield and stuff. But I love combat in this game. I love what you can do, and I just can't wait to dive into it more. So Bantam West, definitely one of my top games this month for sure. Surprise, surprise. Now, speaking of top games of the month, here is my favorite game of the month. Black Rose Wars Rebirth. If you haven't seen my review on it, definitely check it out, because this right here, if you at all align with my gaming taste, you will love Black Rose Wars Rebirth. Like this one is a top contender. It's a top tier board game and it is so much fun. Like it's an all-out mage dueling game, and it is a deck building game with worker placement, but it does it so well and so seamlessly. If you don't like handling a lot of cards though, you probably won't like this one because there are a lot of cards, a lot of different spells that you can master and use to build out your deck. But I mean, if you like full on player interaction and a mage themed game and worker placement, and if you like just full out fun. If you enjoy fun, then you will enjoy this game because Black Rose Wars just does so many things right, despite the rulebook too. Like the rulebook here, yes, it is a hindrance. It just could be better. It doesn't take away from like the gameplay. There are just some unanswered questions, but it is really worth the payoff. It's one of the few games that it really has a beautiful payoff for diving into investing into the rulebook. And I've already like played through half the expansions by now, which is not typical. Usually I'll just play through the base game. I'll back everything and I'll play just the base game and maybe I'll get over it or maybe it'll just sit on my shelf for a bit. But no, I've dove into 3 of the expansions so far. And I already ordered like another one for like the 5 to 6 player expansion. So that should be a fun way to see because it's a pretty long game overall. It's like 2 to 3 hours. It doesn't feel that way, but it is long. Those are also learning games too. So I think if we're not learning, it'd probably take like 2.5 hours. And with the expansion at 5 or 6 players, I just want pure chaos in this world. And I just also love too that you get to rebuild the rooms that you're in. So it's not just mindless fighting. So anyways, Black Rose Wars Rebirth, expected to see on some top gaming lists coming out very, very soon because this game is so good. 3 more games that I played this month. This one, oh my God. Zoo Vadis is by Rainer Knizia, is extremely fun. This right here, I feel like if you like, for some reason I think about Raw when I play Zoo Vadis because it has that bidding mechanic ultimately, but it is a negotiation game at the end of the day. And in this game, the most interesting part is that you are playing as an animal. That's the most interesting part, is that you're playing as an animal. But you're playing as an animal with a unique ability. They're all asymmetric, but here's the kicker. You cannot use your own ability. You can only activate it for other people because your goal in this game is to get to the final park area, the very top of the board. You start at the bottom and you're trying to work your way to the top. And there are different ways for you to climb up to the top. But the main way is for you to have the vote of other animals in the zoo. So you cannot move up until you have enough votes. And the reason why other people want to vote yes is because they will earn money for them to get that yes, or to give a yes to you. And then when you start moving up too, you can also control your own thing. Like you can have a zookeeper go in front of you and the zookeeper will bring you along to like the next area. So it's an extremely clever game and it kind of blows my mind about how many things are happening here and how everything was just tied in together. And what I also really love about it too is that it plays up to 7 players. That was the reason why I got it initially, was for that player count, but it works wonderfully at 4 players. I probably wouldn't play it any less than that. I feel like at 4 and up, this game really shines because then you have a ton more interaction and a lot more discussions going on about why you want to get people voting you up. And it's just a fun game that really clicks for me too because I found some ways to really make it interesting and fun for me where like I can kind of deceive people in this game and that makes it fun for me. I'm not going to ruin it by giving you strategies and stuff because it's just a game that you just need to experience. If you like deduction games, I know this is a pretty deduction heavy, negotiation heavy month, but you're going to love Zoo Vadis because it's really fun. But it's not fully like a negotiation too because you can also do stuff on your own. And that's what I also really appreciated because it doesn't limit you to other people's conversations. Like yes, they are a heavy influence, but you can still do stuff on your own. Like you can still move up by moving the zookeeper in front of you and having the peacocks vote. So there are ways that the game mitigates the outside player influence, and that is why I really love Zoo Vadis. The next game I played was stolen from me. Not really. My niece really loved it, and that's why she wanted to keep it, so I gave it to her. And this one is Pollen. Now, Pollen is a really very, very light game where you are trying to build up your garden, and I'll put a picture up here somewhere. But you're trying to build up your garden, and I loved it because it's a tile placement game, and if you win like the most in a certain quadrant, then you'll win that particular bug, like the beetle or the butterfly or the bee. It's a really light filler. I feel like it's a game that I would bring even like for travel too, or even something like a little more complex for kids too. Like this is a great game for it. Or if you want a filler game, then Pollen is a fun tile laying game for that. This was also sent to me by Ivy Studios. Thank you, Ivy Studios, for sending this over. But the final production copy of Fractured Sky. Now, it was already beautiful as it is in the prototype form, but the final production, stunning. Like, I'm not surprised because it is Ivy Studios and they're so good at it, but like, it still boggles the mind how beautiful this game is because even all the individual painted ships, they come out so well. But more importantly, we play this at 4 players, and it's a really fun, like, hidden auction building game because you are sending out your ships. I covered this game too. You can check it out there in case you want to know more. But the goal in this game is to collect the most starfalls that are falling from the sky. And to do that, you are sending out your ships every turn. You have a maximum of 3 heavy airships or airships to send out. And the plot behind that is that the ships that you send out will have a magnetic number. It's so cool. They will have magnetic number behind your player screen, and you can only play, up to 10, right? So if you have like a 0 and a 10 and another 0, then that's what you have to play for your turn, right? Well, if you play like a 7, then the next 2 ships have to be like a 3 and a 0 or a 2 and a 1 and any combination of that. Now it gets a little more involved in that because there are hidden objectives and also hidden starfall locations. So you can also take a turn to look at where the next starfall is going to land, or to look at what the next objective is, which will score you a starfall too at the end of the round. And at the same time, you can also build up fortresses and markets because these will give you more troop power and also will give you more resources. And those resources are what you use to kind of augment your, like, the areas that you want to fortify your troops in. And I think that's what makes it really fun about Fractured Sky, is that it is a very light game, but there are a lot of choices that you can make. Like, are you going to go and build out your fortress, or are you gonna just go for starfalls? But I think that right there is like maybe one thing I'm not sure if I fully like just yet, just some initial thoughts, because I went an entire game without building a single market and without building a single fortress, and without even using the mini airships, the skimmers too. I've only used the airships, and I managed to somehow magically win that game. It was a close game though, and for that, like, I don't fully like that because I want, like, in a game, I usually like when you are kind of not forced, but you're more incentivized to experience all parts of the game. But if I can just skip out on those things, then it's like, well, do I want that? Do I like that? I don't know just yet. So I'm glad that it's there, and I'm glad that you have the flexibility to do those things if you want to. But if I can still win without them, you know what I mean? Like, there's that little disconnect there. But bottom line though, I still really love this game, and it's still really fun. And I am excited to dive into it more, especially now they have an expansion too. I think it's just launching on Kickstarter, where they have like the rifts, where there are now colored starfalls, and the complexity for this has increased because now there's some set collection, so you have some more end game goals to dive into. So I'm excited for that. 2 other games that I played this month. So this is Circadians Chaos Order. Now this one, the rulebook is great, and I love the asymmetry. It's a very, very asymmetric game. So I thought that's the reason why I wanted to play this initially, because it was sent to me for review. But it took me a long time, I think like maybe a year or 2 now actually, to finally dive into this game a few times. And time after time, I'm sitting there thinking like, what does this game remind me of? And immediately it's Scythe. And I feel like at the end of the day, if I had to choose between this and Scythe, it would be Scythe in a heartbeat. And the reason why is because I feel like this is trying to do a lot of things that Scythe does. It has a lot of similar mechanics in that, where it's a resource gathering game, but it has asymmetry thrown on it. But aside from the artwork, which is a put off for me here, I feel like the reason why it's not the greatest fit for me is because everything just feels a little bloated. Like, I like the amount of asymmetries offered, but it just doesn't really fully click for me. And I think the combat actually is the biggest letdown, because combat in Scythe, so initially I didn't like Scythe, you know, that's why I wanted to give this a couple more chances and not just play it one time. But in Scythe, I did not like it at first, because when we played it, I expected a combat game. Like, I saw these airships, I saw all these giant mechs, and I'm like, oh dang, this is gonna be crazy, right? We're gonna be fighting nonstop. But then the combat there, you only fight if you need to, and if it's worth losing the resources or gaining resources. So once I started to move my mindset away from that and think about it more as like a resource gathering game, then that's when I really enjoyed Scythe a lot more, and why I grew to love that game. So that's why when Circadians Chaos Order came in, and the third time that I played, I like did the same mindset, right? I'm like, okay, you know, maybe this is not a combat-oriented game at all, but then these factions will give you different commanders and different leaders that incentivize you to fight, and I just didn't like the fighting overall. You know, like the combat here just wasn't it for me. It's the same thing, right? You have a dial, you bid for it, You win, cool. You lose, cool. Like, there's just not much agency to fighting other than, it is an area control game, of course, but I think just overall, just wasn't as fun. There's a very complex game, there's a lot going on, but it reminds me too much of Scythe, and I just rather would play Scythe. Now, speaking of area control, the final game I wanted to mention that we played this month is finally, you've seen this one for a bit, this is Northgard. Now, Northgard was really fun because in it, you do have a somewhat asymmetric faction. You have a unique clan, and it is a full-on area control game. But I think it, at the end of the day, is just too simple because, like, it's fun. Like, don't get me wrong, like, this is a fun game because you get to build out unique structures, your map unfolds, you have an explore action, you have combat is pretty cool because you roll dice and you can also bid food before you roll dice to give you axes. The most axes wins, and then the combat here is good. Like, it's a good fighting system, it's a good area control game, but then at the end of the day, it's like, I want great games. Like, that's where I'm at right now. I'm at a point where I need great games to stay. But you know, all of us have such limited time, and then we always have such a limited space. So like, I'm just trying to keep like the best of the best, especially with like the upcoming studio tour of like the games and stuff. And I feel like I would at the end of the day rather play like Blood Rage or Ankh or Lords of Ragnarok, right? You have so many other big heavy hitters that Northgard is competing against. So it's just in a space where there are other games that does this so much better. Fun overall, it's a good game, but at the end of the day, it's like, I already have games that are better. But if like you're starting out your collection and you want an area control game and you want like pretty much an elevated small world with a lot more complexity, then Northgard might be a good fit for you because this is fun overall. It's not the greatest one. Like, there are others that are already so good competing with it here. So that's where Northgard is right now. Okay, with that said, my least favorite for sure was Earthborne Rangers. That one is not it for me. But my favorite of the month for sure was Black Rose Wars Rebirth. Hands down. Like, if I had to pick one game to play again this month, which I will for May, it's gonna be Black Rose Wars Rebirth in the expansion. So I appreciate you all so much for watching and hanging out with me as I talk about some games that I got to play in the month of April 2024. If you made it to the very end, tell me what was your favorite game that you played this month. With that said, I will see you all in the next one.